Do you remember how to find area of a rectangle? Well, area of a rectangle, the formula is length times width. And so we want to find the area of this rectangle. And if we use these squares as units of measure, we see that this rectangle is 3 units by 6 units. Okay, and what that means when we multiply length times width, all we're doing is we're saying this rectangle has a length of 6. What that means is that it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units across. So if you look, we have 6 squares going across the first row, and we have 3 rows. So in order to find the total number of squares inside the figure, which is what area is, we have to multiply 6 times 3. We could just count, right? We could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And we can say, oh, we counted the number of squares, and the number of squares is 18, therefore the area is 18. But when we want to calculate it mathematically, we say there are 3 rows and each row has 6 squares, so that would be 3 times 6. Okay, or 6 times 3, and it doesn't really matter because multiplication is commutative, so the area would be 18. Well, we're going to use this area model to try to understand what happens when we multiply fractions. So in the case of multiplying fractions, what we're going to do is we're going to take the area of a square. So for our first example, I'm going to make a 4 by 4 square. And instead of saying that this is 4 by 4, I'm going to change things around a little, and I am going to say that the area of this square is 1 square unit. 1 unit squared. Okay, and that means I'm looking at all 16 in this case of these little squares, and I'm saying that it takes 4 units to make up one side. Okay, so in this case, if this is a 1 by 1 square, then now what I'm going to do is I am going to figure out what is the area of a rectangle that is 1/4 of a unit by 1/2. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to block this off. Well, if the length of this square is 1 whole unit, then if I divide it into 4 equal pieces, each of these is 1/4 of a unit. Okay, and so I want a rectangle that is 1/4 of a unit going across and 1/2 of a unit going down. So in this case, I'm only going to divide it in half. This would be 1/2 a unit. This would be 1/2 a unit. So I want to block off a rectangle or to shade in a rectangle that measures 1/4 of a unit across by 1/2 a unit down. What does that look like? It looks like this. Okay, right? A 1/4 of a unit across, 1/2 a unit down. And I want to figure out what is the area of that little piece. Now I know that the area is going to be less than 1 because that whole big thing, this whole square, has an area of 1. So how do I figure out what the area is? All I do is my area is equal to the number of shaded pieces out of the total number of pieces, because after all, this is a fraction, and a fraction is part out of the total. Well, in this case, what do we see? We see the area equals 1, because 1 piece is shaded, out of a total of, how many pieces are there altogether? There are 8. So the area equals 1/8, which means that 1/4 times 1/2, remember length times width, equals 1/8. Now if you look at this just as a fraction model, we just drew a model of 1 out of 8, or 1/8. Okay, let's take a little more complicated example. Let's draw another square, and again, it's 4 little squares by 4 little squares, but we're going to consider it to be one whole unit. I want to find the area of a part of this square to show 1/3 times 3/4. So let's see how we can do that. What I want to do is, if I want to think of this as length times width, then 1/3 would be the length. So I have to divide my 1 unit into 3 equal pieces, right? Each of these would be 1/3. And I want to divide the other way into 4ths. Okay, so each of these would be 1/4. And now I want to do some shading. Okay, I like green. So the length of my rectangle that I want to shade in is 1/3. So I'm only going to go 1/3 of the way. But I need to go 3/4 of the way down. So I need to go down to here. And it needs to be a rectangle, so I need to shade in. And can everybody see, hopefully, that this rectangle that I shaded in green measures 1/3 across by 3/4. And so, according to my model, what do I have here? The area would equal 3 shaded pieces out of a total of 3, 6, 9, 12. And so when I replace my area with just the dimensions so that I can get a multiplication problem, I know that 1/3 times 3/4 equals 3/12. And 3/12 is equal to 1/4. Okay, we'll do one more. Another 4 units. And in this case, let's do 3/4 across by 2/3 this time. Okay, so now we're going to do 4ths across the top. And I always like to label. And 1/3 up and down. And what do I want to shade in? I want to shade in 3/4 going across, so the length is going to be this. The width is going to be 2/3, so 2 units going down. Again, it has to be a rectangle because the whole thing is based on area of a rectangle. And what do I have? I have 3/4 times 2/3 is equal to, we have 6 shaded pieces out of a total of 4, 8, 12 again. And that is equal to 1/2. And that's how we use area models to represent multiplying fractions.